I'm Dr. Kristen Casey. I'm a clinical health psychologist. I specialize in insomnia and anxiety disorders, and you're listening to On Call Empath.
Hey, this is Raj Vintage coming at you from the On Call Empath. Thank you for joining me on this special episode of the On Call Empath. This is the Elite Coaches series. And in today's episode, I want to tackle the subject of sleep and why it is so vital for so many people that are chronic warriors, people that have been through a lot of, that are facing so much in life, stress, especially during the holidays. Are you one of those people that can fall asleep and then wake up really early and not fall back asleep? So you're like kind of like half awake and then your whole day is you're like feeling tired. I'm the type of person where I have problems just falling asleep. I know millions of people have insomnia, especially highly sensitive people, people that have chronic worry, people that have, maybe they're living with someone that maybe a narcissist, they're constantly vigilant. And that's really hard to get your body to calm down, especially in the evening hours. Try living in a part of the country where the the seasons are during the season it's so dark, and we have daylight savings, so it kind of messes up our rhythms and things like that. But more importantly, now with technology and stuff, I mean, I'm guilty of looking at my phone at night and first thing in the morning. So is that good? I mean, these are some of the things that we're going to be kind of diving into, but more importantly, in this episode, my next guest is going to be talking about sleep and how it affects the mental health, and also the different things that we can do. Obviously, this is not medical advice. Definitely see a qualified physician if you're having any major sleep issues. But in this episode, we're going to be diving in more into insomnia. Now, my next guest is a therapist, and let me tell you something. It's really hard to find somebody who is so open with her life and very transparent. My next guest, Dr. Kristen Casey, just came out with a book on Amazon called Life Lessons to Master Before You Die. I highly recommend that. Check it out in the link below. But she talks about exactly what we can do, especially as chronic warriors and people that can't fall asleep right away. She's going to give us some guidance and go more into detail on how important sleep is on all levels of life. So that would be the first thing that I can tell anyone, that if you're always tired, if you're always in a bad mood, what are your sleep cycles like? Sometimes people would ask me, well, how's your sleep? And I would just blow it off. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? Believe it or not, sleep is very important. It helps our immune system. It definitely regulates us, keeps us alert. But if we try to push ourselves, you know, for me, for example, when I first started this podcast, I'd be pumping out 3-4 episodes a week, barely getting any sleep for 4 hours a night. And then I would sleep a couple hours and then wake up too early. And then I could feel it. I was in a bad mood. You can tell on my podcast that, it would take me a little bit, it would take me some time to process things. And it would just be a lot harder. It feels like I had a bag of bricks on my back. And I'm sure you guys could relate, especially those that can't fall asleep very easily, or they have insomnia. Now, if you are one of those people that have no sleep issues and you're good, you could still learn a lot from this episode. So I would definitely tune in. My next guest, she is amazing. She's a therapist, Dr. Kristen Casey, and she has some wonderful information on her Instagram, TikTok, very entertaining stuff. But more importantly, she talks about, sleep and insomnia. She is the specialist. That's why I've invited her on the Elite Coaches series. Very good at what she does. So definitely check her out. All the information's on the bottom. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and get started. You're listening to the On-Call Empath Show.
I'm Dr. Kristen Casey. I'm a clinical health psychologist. I specialize in insomnia and anxiety disorders, and you're listening to On-Call Empath.
Hey guys, we are back for another episode of the On-Call Empath. And today's episode, we have a very good topic that I think a lot of you empaths are going to like. It's going to be about sleep and how it affects our mental health. And my next guest, Dr. Casey, she is one of the best out there. She's not your typical therapist. She's going to tell you how it is. She's got tattoos, and I wish I had someone like her growing up. But Dr. Casey, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing so good. So happy to be here. I'm honored to be here. I love your podcast.
I appreciate it. I love what you're doing with everything, and sleep seems to be a very big topic just in general. And I know you just came out with a book. Now, that's out on Amazon right now, correct?
It is, yeah. It's there's a paperback version and a Kindle version.
Cool. So let's just dive right in. Tell me a little bit about you and how you even got into sleep and all of that, because usually with therapists, they have different specialties. This is your forte, correct?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting how I got involved in sleep. It kind of happened by accident. So what happened was, as you know, I'm a clinical psychologist, so I have to go through training and internship and fellowship and all these clinicals. And during my internship, my clinical internship at the Department of Veterans Affairs, we have to do these rotations. They're required. So one of the rotations for me was running this sleep class. And I was telling my colleague, I was like, this is so boring. This is going to be so boring. Like, I'm dreading this. Like, this is going to suck.
You're going to fall asleep.
I'm going to fall asleep. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, this is not going to be fun for me. I ended up falling in love. So it was interesting how it happened, because I was like begrudgingly teaching this class and helping people with their sleep. But I noticed that people were getting better so quickly. And I noticed that even the people that, didn't really have much mental health issues, they just had sleep stuff going on, they got better so quick. Mm-hmm. And I do know on your podcast, you really talk a lot about like empaths, highly sensitive people. That was an episode recently.
Yeah.
And I noticed that people who are really in tune with other people, a lot of them do struggle with sleep because they're really, really thinking about these things. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got into it. But even before that, I was an EMT on an ambulance. And as you would imagine, I was up all night answering calls. It was just kind of crazy. So I dealt with my own insomnia too. So now I just focus a lot on sleep, especially on my social media channels. People love talking about it, which I'm jazzed about because I love talking about it too. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Very cool. And I mean, just in general, just the population, I think sleep is something, at least for me, like personally, if I don't get enough sleep, I have all kinds of elements the next day. I feel tired. Sometimes I get anxiety, and I'm just not at my best. So to just kind of dive in here, what kind of myths do you have about like insomnia and all of that comes with sleep, especially sleep disorders, I should say?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. So there's over 70 sleep disorders, which is mind blowing. I specialize in just insomnia, but be happy to talk about sleep in general in terms of like the myths. So I think one myth is everybody requires 8 hours of sleep. Mm-hmm. Not everybody does. Like you said, sometimes there's anxiety, sometimes there's a mental health issue, sometimes there's stress, and our body doesn't exactly need as much sleep. So if we're drinking caffeine, we have a lot going on, we might not actually require that much sleep because sleep is for restoration. It's not for relaxation. So whatever amount of time that takes for our body to restore its certain biological processes, then that's kind of how much we need. There are people out there that say 8 hours and I'm good. And that's great. If that works for you. For me personally, it's about like 6.5. And if I have any more than that, I get like a little groggy. Yeah. So that's a big myth. Another myth is that you need sleep medications if you're experiencing insomnia, right? Like, what do I take to make this go away? Right. And we noticed that the first line treatment for chronic insomnia lasting like more than 3 or 4 months, is actually cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. We're super excited about this as psychologists because it's not a medication and it's a first line treatment, which is really unique for something like this. Acute insomnia resulting from like jet lag or something like that, over the counter medications usually will do the trick. But those are the two big myths that I hear about.
So what can I do? Like, because I know I go to melatonin and I try to dim the lights, put the candles, stop the internet and the blue screen. And I just make my bed, very comfortable at night. But sometimes with empaths, the people that you guys that are all listening, a lot of my clients that complain, like at night, the brain starts to, all those worries come up. No matter what they do, they can do whatever like they're supposed to in the bedroom and make sure that it's only for sleep, because we're creatures of habit and all that jazz. What are some of the things that you feel that do work for people that have anxious minds, or that you help your clients with, basically?
Yeah, what you're talking about is actually rooted in a lot of the science. So we think about three building blocks for a good night's sleep. The first is high sleep drive. So our body's biological need for sleep. If we wake up and we're active throughout the day, usually we become more tired as the day goes on because our body actually needs sleep. The second is our circadian rhythm. So if you're waking up at the same time every day and you're exposing yourself to light right upon waking, that usually helps create a really good rhythm. And that actually helps with melatonin too, because if we wake up at the same time every day, our bodies will know when melatonin is needed. And then the third is actually low arousal or anxiety. So this is the one that people struggle with the most, especially people who are empaths, because they're thinking about a lot of things, right? So the anxiety that happens when you enter your bed, sometimes that could be conditioned and sometimes it isn't. So I love how you're setting your bedroom up and you're making it very dark and cool. That's excellent. When we get into bed, sometimes for some people, there's this cognitive association that happens. They actually associate the bed with wakefulness rather than sleepiness. So if you're getting into bed and you're thinking, okay, this is where I can think about things, this is where I have space to think about things, or this is my safe space to think, then that's what your body will do. Anxiety at night, or anxiety in general, is also a survival mechanism. So back in the day, the theories out there are when we were hunter-gatherers among all these bears and other wild animals, if we weren't anxious, then we could die in our sleep, right? Because we weren't aware. So that actually, even if the two other building blocks of sleep are set, like circadian rhythm and sleep drive, anxiety will always keep you up, even if you have not slept in days, because your body wants to, it's really focused on survival, basically.
Right.
So what people could do for that is practice anti-arousal measures outside of the bedroom. So you want to practice makes progress, right? So if you're experiencing anxiety in your lived life, like right before you go to sleep, you want to practice, what do I do in this moment to reduce my anxiety threshold? You might give yourself a number like, hey, my anxiety is like an 8 out of 10 right now. Let me try to get it to a 7 out of 10 and see what that feels like. So then when you're in bed, you could do that exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that I hear, especially with trauma victims, when they get triggered or they don't feel good, they'll stay in bed all day sometimes. And so my question to you is, if somebody is in bed, like, let's say some days out of the week, because they had a bad day, they don't want to get up and they just want to stay and watch TV or whatnot, is that going to mess up the whole rhythm of your sleep, or is it okay to do it once in a while? Because I know that you've mentioned, like, if you need to take a day off to Netflix and chill and all that kind of jazz, can we do that in bed and not make it a habit? Or
That's a really good question. So I actually struggle with that too.
Me too.
When I take a day off, it's hard. It's hard. Let me tell you, like, your bed's so comfortable for a reason and you
That's
never
what
want to
I
get out
do.
of
I
it.
have no other
Yeah.
furniture but my bed. So
Exactly. So in an ideal situation, and I say ideal because there's always, everybody has different living arrangements, right? In terms of furniture, accessibility, do they have access to other furniture items? Are they able to actually move, right? Some people have disability issues, right? So when I think about this, ideally, we don't want bed to be for relaxation. We just want it to be for sleep. Sleep and sex, those are the only two things. It's really difficult, but those are basically what we want to strive for. If that's not possible, what I suggest is have one side of your bed used just for sleep and the other side for relaxation. If you can make that happen, maybe have different pillows on that side, prop them up, maybe potentially sit up a little bit. Because what happens is, are you familiar with Pavlov? and the
Yeah.
dogs and the meat powder. Okay.
Yeah.
So for those listeners out there, I'm sure they know about this, but it's a quick Google search. But basically, he studied conditioning. So what he did was he took a couple of dogs, right? And he had a bell. The bell is a neutral stimulus, basically. Like if you hear a bell, you don't associate that with really anything unless it's like a fire alarm bell, right? So he tried to pair this food and feeding schedule with the bell so that the dogs would actually salivate to the bell rather than just smelling the meat powder or the meat. So what happened was they would hear the bell and then they would start salivating even without the presence of the meat. And the same exact thing happens with our bed. So it's crazy because the bed is technically a neutral stimulus if we really think about it. But we're pairing it with anxiety, we're pairing it with wakefulness, and then we're kind of staying awake. So to your point, I think once in a while, great, it happens to all of us. But if we notice that it's a pattern, our bodies might start to catch on. So we might want to try to relax in potentially a different area of our room if you're in a studio apartment or something.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, I didn't know that. I don't know if I'm going to just mention a couple things, and if you can tell me if this is something that you heard that is effective or not. I've heard that sometimes if you lower the temperature in a room, or you start dimming the lights as you get later at night, like I'll turn off lights in the room just to kind of get my brain to kind of calm down. Does any of those things work? And what would you say would be like the number one thing that does kind of work that someone could use right after this podcast to kind of go back to regular sleep rhythms?
Yeah. So I love the two that you mentioned because those two are really, really rooted in the research. So the first is the temperature, right? So we do notice that our bodies drop a little bit in temperature as we're sleeping. So if the bedroom is dark and cool, then it's going to help aid with our sleep architecture and getting into those cycles and stages of sleep. So that's definitely something helpful if possible, right? And then the second one is the dimming of the lights. And I love that because really what you're doing is you're helping your circadian rhythm and you're aiding it, right? Especially when there's daylight savings time and all this stuff happening, right? It's difficult.
Michigan.
The main, right. Yeah. So, so the main thing in my mind is the dimming of the lights and consistency is going to be very, very helpful. So light and consistency, if those are two things that you take away from this podcast today, that's what I would give out there.
Right.
And I'll explain that. So our circadian rhythm is kind of housed in a way, I'm generalizing this, but housed in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is in the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is regulated by consistency and exposure to light when it comes to circadian rhythm. So if those are two things that you could do, your brain really responds well to those. It's like that reptilian part of our brain that is just kind of focused on those two things. So for me personally, what I do, I really struggle to wake up in the morning. I'm not a morning person. So it sucks.
I'm like nocturnal.
I know, me too. I'm like, am I okay? Yeah. So, and there's people out there and, there's a lot of bias, among night owls out there, but basically what I try to do is the minute my alarm goes off, I turn my lights on and I put my feet on the ground and I just get out of bed and I hate it. I hate it every morning, but I do it. Right. So it helps with my circadian rhythm.
Right.
And at night, I really do lower the temperature and do exactly what you said of like dimming the lights and all that. So those are two things that I would take away.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's 10 times harder, especially where you live in the US or even overseas, or whoever's listening. If you live in a place where it's always dark and you don't like, sometimes I'll wake up, it's pitch dark, and I'll go to bed, it's pitch dark, especially in the wintertime. I go between sometimes Arizona, California, and Michigan. Michigan is dark like a lot during these, this time of month, where some days it's just pitch dark all day and I'm like confused. I can put lights on, I can, go outside, but I'm like, how do you like, and then the daylight savings, which throws me off also. So it is challenging, especially if you live in a state that's kind of messed up, like where I live right now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You're bouncing all over the place. I lived in Arizona for a while and I will tell you, my sleep was so good when I lived there. I don't really know why. Like, I was like, what's going on?
You wake up and it's sun and you go to bed, it's sun, like.
I know. I had a colleague who did his internship in Alaska and I always wanted to ask him about the light situation out there. Cause I'm not well versed in like light, whatever. But a lot of people up there, apparently they have like light boxes, like UV light boxes that aid in like, just sunlight or just exposure to light and stuff like that. So I've recently got I got an alarm clock that's really, really cool. And it like just starts, it almost looks like a sunrise in a way.
Yeah.
And I tried, I was like, let me just test this out and like
Right.
not have an alarm and just have the sunlight thing. And it actually worked. It really did work. It woke me up. I was like, this is so weird.
Well, I know that there's some people that do have seasonal depression
Mhm.
that deal with this, even if they live in a warm, sunny climate. It could affect anyone. I know that's something some people deal with as well. But yeah, it's just very interesting stuff. I always wondered, like, what can I do just to make my sleep even 10% better? Just because there's such a night different day and night difference. Because the next day, if I can feel like when I, don't have enough sleep. So,
Exactly. And it's so interesting too, because when I started to research sleep, and I started to get involved in like projects about sleep,
uh-huh,
I really had no idea the impact. Like I knew about the research. You could read an article and you could read several
uh-huh,
articles, meta-analyses, you can involve yourself in all the research. But when you try to do it yourself, it's actually really difficult. So I give my clients a lot of credit for following through on these things because they're not easy. And I think the hardest thing is what we touched on before is the consistency. So like waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends,
yeah,
that's difficult. Who wants to wake up
yes,
at 6 a.m. on a Saturday when you have the whole day off, right?
yeah,
So it's hard, but it really, really helps. And we do notice too that it helps with mental health. So I know that sometimes when we're really in tune with other people's emotions and we're really taking on a lot of people's energy, it can be really draining, right?
yeah,
So if we're getting enough sleep, then I think it helps us kind of regulate in a way.
yeah,
Because I find myself too in session, like I would consider myself empathic, right? Like kind of taking on people's feelings.
hmm,
And I've had to stop that. So especially in therapy, just so that I could have empathy, but like not kind of be completely involved.
yeah,
And I noticed that when I got more sleep, I was better able to do these things, and
yeah,
I would be like on my game in a way.
yeah. Once you get it down, it's like a habit. You can
Right. Right.
change it, and that's what I tell a lot of people. It takes a couple of weeks. You just keep doing it consistently, and then you develop a habit. So interesting stuff. So I just want to change gears really quick,
Mhm.
and I just want to kind of just ask you about sleep treatment. If you can kind of tell us about that, and what are probably one of the number one things that people hate about it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Perfect. I love this question. So there's several treatments out there. So depending on the sleep disorder that you have, the treatment will look different. Like I said, there's over 70 sleep disorders. If we're just focusing on
Mhm,
insomnia, which is difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up and feeling dissatisfied with the quality of our sleep.
mhm.
If that's really the key that's going on, the first line treatment is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And you could go to a psychologist or a therapist who offers that. I will say it seems to be very limited.
Mhm,
There's not many providers who offer that. I just know a handful of people, even in my own circle, who do. So I've actually, just for accessibility, I've been really talking to a lot of these apps that provide it's not treatment, but they'll provide like coaching or potentially just like information about sleep, just so that you could
mhm.
kind of get a little more info. That's the first line treatment. People hate it because it's really hard. It's really difficult to make changes
Right.
when we have habits and stuff. So I do notice the first 2 weeks of treatment, people are coming, to session exhausted. Like they're like, I hate this. But then I notice I don't see those people again for years, which is a really good thing in my field.
Mhm.
You want people to just, be okay. Even if I never see them again, I'll deal with that. But
Right.
that part's hard because you're looking at caffeine use, you're looking at naps, you're looking at the time in bed, you're
Mhm,
not bed lounging, meaning like you're not staying in bed longer. So we
mhm.
take a lot of data about sleep and we're pretty critical. Like, hey, you woke up at this time this day and this time this day. So it could be a vulnerable experience for people as well. So that's kind of the first line treatment for insomnia. There's also medications. So second line treatment, they still work technically, but they're not nearly as effective as CBTI, but it
Mhm.
depends on the circumstance. Some people do both. So you could get prescription medication for insomnia. And then there's also over-the-counter medications like diphenhydramine, which is Benadryl and ZzzQuil. It's the same drug.
Right.
So people usually take that as well, but then they notice there's like a hangover effect the next day and they're groggy. Then it's
Yeah.
difficult to wake up. And then I'm like, we got to wake up at the same time. Wait, so there's all these things. So with those treatments, the side effects are usually the biggest points of contention for people. Like, I don't want to feel groggy. Um,
Yeah. That's one of the things I be careful about, like all those Z quills and night quills and stuff over the counter. Like sometimes you just feel restful. You think
mhm.
you're restful, but it's like not quality sleep. And quality sleep is what kind of what I go for, just because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it this way too, like the number doesn't matter as much as the quality, right? Like you're
Hmm.
saying. So if you get a solid 6 hours of sleep, maybe you
Hmm.
have two awakenings, which is technically normal. It's normal to have awakenings overnight, which is
Hmm.
another myth. People are like, I want to sleep through the whole night. I'm like, something's going on if you're not waking up at least once, or at least like something's happening every now and
Yeah.
then, but if that's a quality sleep for you, great. Some people want the number, which I get. Everybody wants
Yeah.
8 hours of sleep. So yeah, it just depends on the person.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. So just kind of wrapping up here, I know you've got a lot of things going on. I'm excited about your book. If you want to just kind of tell us where we can find it and what's the title and anything else you want to add, feel free to do
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So my book, it's this yellow book right here. It's called Life Lessons to Master Before You Die. It's a quick read. It's only 70 pages, 72
Hmm.
pages maybe. So basically what I did was on the ambulance and as a therapist, psychologist, evaluator, I noticed that people struggle with very similar experiences, whether or not they have mental health issues. And I really wanted to take all of the things that people have told me about what they wish they could master before they die, basically, and put it into
Hmm.
one book. So it's a way for me to honor my clients, obviously with confidentiality. There's never any clients' names in there or anything.
Right.
But I did notice, like, for example, like showing up authentically or, having those real deep conversations with people that you love before they die, like really trying to live a really authentic, meaningful life, because I think it's important.
Hmm.
Um, and the book itself, it talks about, the pattern and like maybe what people experience and then how to
Right.
mitigate it. Like, what do I do about this? Because people want
Right.
strategies, right? So that's that book. I also have a book about insomnia coming out next year. I actually just
Oh,
signed a contract. Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, so that'll be in the works. But yeah, you could find it on Amazon. If you follow me on any social media platform at Dr. Kristen Casey, it'll be a link in my bio there too.
Awesome. And I'll link everything in the bio in this episode. If you guys are watching YouTube or even on a podcast, just go ahead and click it and you can definitely check it out. I was looking through some of the chapters and I mean, you've got a lot of good stuff in there. I know one section of chapter 4, you said, your opinion of others, that's what kind of matters. Like sometimes empaths, that affects us overall in our lives, because we're always wondering what other people are thinking, if they're going to accept
Yeah.
us. And I found that, like, okay, so I can resonate with that, like, because that's something that I think about a lot. Like, are they going to accept me? Are they going to like me? And that affects my sleep a little bit,
Oh
just
yeah. Oh, that'll keep you up all night, like
yeah.
wondering what people think. And I think about it on this, like on a basic spectrum of, it might not be so helpful to always think about what other people think. I mean, it's helpful for certain things like risk assessment and,
Hmm.
making sure that you're safe and stuff like that. But I think sometimes when we focus on that too much, then we lose sight of living our life for us. And then we're kind of focused on what other people think of us. Because
Yeah.
our really, truly really, truly is the only thing that matters, right? How you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and I, like you said, I think for empaths, it is hard because there's a lot going on, right? It's like, what's this person thinking? What's this person's mood? Like,
Hmm.
is what I'm bringing to the table affecting them in any way? How are they affecting me? Right. So there's a lot of internal dialogue. It's definitely difficult. And that's one that I struggle with too. I struggle with that a lot of, should I care about other people's opinions? And not all opinions are weighed the same, right? So
Yeah.
if somebody really cares about you and they're giving you their opinion,
Yeah.
that makes sense. If it's a stranger on the internet with no profile picture, it's like, okay, let's think about this.
Right. Yeah, those hurtful comments that you get.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've gotten a couple and it's like, why does this sting so much? I don't know who this person is. There's no
Right.
followers on the other end. But
Uh-huh.
as empaths, it does hurt.
It does. Oh, yeah, it stings for sure.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Casey, you are doing amazing stuff, and it was just an honor for you to be on the podcast, and you're always welcome back. And just, I'm looking forward to your new book, and you're always, like I said, welcome back to the show.
I appreciate you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's an honor. I am obsessed with this podcast.
Oh, that
To
means
be
a lot.
honest, yeah, I listen every new episode. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a new one, and I listen to it. So yeah,
That means a lot coming from you. So,
thanks.
with that said, guys, check her out. Check out her website and her book and the Instagram. All that will be in the bio. This will be coming out this week, and always keep moving forward. And stay tuned for the next episode. And we are out.